It is indeed a proud moment for us today when we are celebrating the second Foundation Day of CSIR National Institute of Science Communication and Policy Research. And we are fortunate to have amongst us our esteemed guests, Professor B.N. Jagtap from Department of Physics, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, who is also our Research Council Chairman, and Professor B.B. Dark. He is former director, CSIR SIMFR. Respected Professor B.N. Jagtap, respected Professor B.B. Dar, respected Professor Ranjana Agarwal, Director, CSIR-NISCPR, respected Dr. Sujit Bhattacharya, Chief Scientist and Dean, Policy Research, CSIR-NISCPR, distinguished guests from CSIR headquarters, ACSIR, and other CSIR labs, seniors, faculty members, colleagues, and students of CSIR-NISCPR. A very good afternoon and warm welcome. CSIR-NISCPR came into existence with effect from 14th January 2021 with the merger of erstwhile NISCARE and NISTATS. Together, we have a legacy of a century in the areas of science communication and science, technology, and innovation policy research. As a traditional practice, we will begin the celebrations by lighting the lamp of knowledge. May I request the dignitaries on dais to light the lamp.
तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डम.
Thank you. We would like to welcome our guests, for which may I request our Director Madam to felicitate our Chief Guest, Professor B.N. Jagtap, with a bouquet, shawl, and a memento. Thank you, ma'am. I request our director to felicitate Dr. Bibi Dar. Thank you, ma'am. I request Professor Ranjana Agarwal to give her welcome address to the August gathering.
Thank you very much, Sandhya. First and foremost, I would like to convey the message of DG CSIR, Dr. N. Clay Selvi. As you all know, she was supposed to come and grace the occasion, and she was looking forward to come here and be amongst us. But due to her bad health, she has very high fever and, cold and cough. And she called me around 1 o'clock and she expressed, her inability to come. But she expressed her wishes to all CSIR-NISCPR family for the second foundation day. And she has also promised that before 31st January, she will be with us in NISCPR campus. So I will start with that note. Honorable RC Chairman, Professor B.N. Jagtap, Chairman Steering Committee of National Expert of Swastik, Senior Professor at IIT Bombay, who is today with us to deliver the Foundation Day lecture. Professor B.B. Dhar, former director of CSIR Simfer, but as he mentioned, he is part of the family because he is chairman, Knowledge Awareness Mapping Platform, amongst us, who will be presiding today's function. We have today, we are very fortunate that we have guest, Professor Dr. Amok Gupta, Senior Architect. He was chairman of School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi. Young architect, Dr. Sundar Bhandari from SPA Vijayawada. They are part of Swastik Architecture Subcommittee team. Professor Mohammad Rais, today he is our guest. Dr. Sujit Bhattacharya, who is coordinating this whole event. Distinguished guest from the headquarters who was joining online and offline. CSIR-NISCPR family, research students, very dear research students. They are sitting in the hall today, I can see them. I wish you a very happy second foundation day of CSIR-NISCPR. As we know, on 14 January 2021, this merger was announced and Dr. Harshvardhan, the then SNT minister, was in the campus and he announced this merger. I believe that merger was announced at a very positive, time, because 14 January, Makar Sankranti time, when you have Lodi, when you have Bihu, when you have Pongal, across the country there is a, festivity environment. Modes may be different, but we all are in the happy mode. And I think in that happy mode, when we celebrate our foundation day, it always brings energy, adds more energy to the festivities. So very positive sign we have started with. I am happy in these 2 years, the mandate which was given to us and the problems we had, the challenges we had in the beginning, to a great extent, we have been very successful to address those challenges. We have created opportunities for us and we have been successful in achieving those targets. So, first of all, I would like to thank Professor B.N. Jagtap for being with us. I believe Research Council of any CSIR institution is the lighthouse for any CSIR lab because the direction of R&D activities is being steered by RC committee, and we have been very fortunate that Professor B.N. Jagtap is our RC chairman. Most of you who are, engaged in RC meetings or with the Swastik team, they know how easy accessible he is. His advice is always there, his support is always there, his critical comments are always there, his novel ideas are always there. So we don't feel like he's a chairman RC visiting us once in a while. So whenever we want, he's available online, offline. And this time also he agreed to deliver the Foundation Day lecture. And on a very apt theme, because the whole country is looking forward for the implementation of National Education Policy 2020. And CSIR-NISCPR was once upon a time was pioneering having the discipline of history of science. So today is, the title of the talk itself indicates like how he goes through the journey of the Indian education system starting from the British period till today. And he will be deliberating on that. So I'm very thankful to you, sir. A very warm welcome from my own side and from CSIR-NISCPR family. Professor B.B. Dhar, he wears many hats. He's a professor. He was professor at IIT BHU. And he always, feels very proud telling that he has been a professor. That's why he never wants Dr. B.B. Dhar. He always wants Professor B.B. Dhar. And then he was at Sinfar Dhanbad CSIR lab. And he did fundamental changes in CSIR Simfer working and bringing CSIR Simfer to the, national level, international level. And we are again fortunate to have him as chairman of Knowledge Awareness Mapping Platform. Today's relevance because Knowledge Awareness Mapping Platform, we again are dealing with the school children. So which is like, education. So having him and presiding over the function is a great honor for us. Thank you so very much, sir, for accepting our invitation at a very short period because all the things were going on, parallelly. So I extend a very warm welcome from NISCPR family and all the members who are present here. Because in the Foundation Day, it's the kind of tradition to talk about what, having the introspection, what we have done in the last 1 year. By the inputs from RC and also from the last year we have Honorable Science and Technology Minister Shri Jitendra Singh Ji with us. He also gave us some, points to work on. So combining all these two, we have been working on science communication and policy, which are our mandate. I would like to highlight only a few things. Those who are part of CSIR-NISCPR family, they probably may not be knowing what other groups are doing, what are the, comprehensive, holistic achievements of CSIR-NISCPR. Therefore, it's my duty to, share what we have been doing. And I will touching only very few points which are really needed to be highlighted. Coming to the science communication, it's our mandate to communicate science to all sections of the society. So in that, our popular science magazines play a very important role. Science Reporter, Vigyan Pragati, Science Ki Duniya. And last year was also Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav Varsh. So Science Reporter and Vigyan Pragati took very concerted effort to deliver special issues where Indian science and technology ecosystem and CSIR contribution to science and technology can be highlighted. And special issues like women in science, 75 years of SNT in India, SNT Mission of India, 80 years of CSIR. So these special issues were brought out and these issues were released by the luminaries like PSA, Minister of Science and Technology, Minister of Road and Transport, Shri Nitin Gadkari ji, and so on. And very pleased to share with the chairs and with the audience all that for Vigyan Pragati, we received Kirti Puraskar, first prize from Ministry of Home Affairs by Honorable Home Minister Shri Amit Shah ji. So that was a big achievement for the institution. When it comes to science communication, our Honorable Prime Minister has always desired that traditional knowledge should be communicated to the society in a responsible manner so that we can create confidence in the society about traditional knowledge. We can encourage society to conserve the traditional practices and also instill scientific temper among the scientists to take up research in the field of traditional knowledge. So keeping these in mind, we branded this whole initiative as Swastik, scientifically validated societal traditional knowledge. Last year, in July 21, we started this initiative. It was a very new field. All of you know we do not have any expertise at the moment in traditional knowledge per se. But when the challenge came, we took it as a challenge and it has now turned into an opportunity. We started communicating traditional knowledge which is scientifically validated or scientifically approved by the group of experts by creating a network under the guidance of Professor B.N. Jagtap. Last year when I was sharing this information with Dr. Jitendra Singh ji there, the number was 5 stories in 10 languages. And today, very proudly, I can say we have shared 27 stories in 18 Indian languages. So we have achieved a big milestone. Scientifically validated societal traditional knowledge, Swastik. And more information which you will be like happy and will feel proud that on social media our footprints are 350,000 and on MyGov platform we are 47.9 million people. So that shows that within a short span of 1.5 years we have basically made our presence felt. You know, initially I remember Dr. Charulata is leading that whole initiative. We used to get inquiries from PMO office every week, every fortnight, what is happening to it, because they were not sure what's going to happen with this initiative. But I think now we don't get anything from PMO office because the kind of stories we have propagated in the media, on social media, not even a single controversy has been created on traditional knowledge. Otherwise, we know traditional knowledge creates lots of, hype in the society in one way or the other way. But our stories has been received well. The feedback which they have got, they have the all statistics. It's very satisfactory that we are going in the right direction. Scholarly communication. NISPR is the only institution in India of its own kind which publishes more than 15 journals. We are very conscious of the fact that the reputation of these journals should reach at the international level, not only in the Indian scientific fraternity, but abroad also. So we are working on the editorial board. We are restructuring them. We are giving active role to the chief editor and the executive editors, and our editors will be the scientific editors, giving them the whole support and a very active board. And I'm very happy that person like Professor Govardhan Mehta, like he feels happy to be associated with us, but this also made us realize our responsibility. When we are, roping in the best of the people across the country at the international level, it becomes our responsibility that we deliver which is desired. So we are working on that, and for that we are working in the OJS platform. We are upgrading it, almost upgraded it, almost after a gap of 10 years or so. And in the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, several special issues have been brought out of various journals. And today, Indian Journal of Scientific Research, IJSR, which is 80 years old journal, which started with the establishment of CSIR itself, on its 80th anniversary, we will be releasing a special edition today in the by Dr. Jagtap and Dr. Dhar. Coming to the policy component, RC always emphasized on that CSIR-NISCPR should interact with CSIR labs more frequently and more closely, and should work on the science and technology studies which are relevant to them, rather than doing your own work working in the silos. We should connect. I'm very happy that today we are in a very comfortable situation that we are having almost one-to-one talk with more than 20 CSIR labs. Just in last directors meet, our Director General, Dr. Clay Selvi, also she realizes the role of CSIR-NISCPR, which it can play in accelerating the dissemination of CSIR technology. So she gave us the chance to present the activities of CSIR-NISCPR to the whole CSIR directors, because most of the directors are now new. They do not have much understanding of the CSIR-NISCPR, because NISCPR itself is a new institution. So NISTA and NISCare probably they might be knowing, but most of the directors didn't have any clue about NISCPR. After my presentation, I was given ample time to present CSIR-NISCPR work, and I am sharing with you that many directors are writing me back that they would like to work with CSIR-NISCPR. The technologies they are developing, the studies they want from us, whether this is the market foresight or the socio-economic studies or the TRL assessment, benchmarking, etc., etc. So we are like now coming into the central stage where all the research labs are recognizing us. Another important thing which Dr. Jitendra Singh mentioned last year, that we should work from, how the technologies should be transferred from lab to land. And when Dr. Shekhar Mande was DG CSIR, we started working on creating livelihood in the rural areas, particularly rural areas, using CSIR technologies. And in that endeavor, we are utilizing network of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, which is an initiative of Ministry of Education, and Vigyan Bharati, which are having units in each and every state of India. So with UBA and Vibha, we have developed a very strong networking. Till now, more than 80 technologies of CSIR has been showcased to more than 3,000 stakeholders. Nectar, which is an DST autonomous institute which works for the upliftment of Northeastern region through science and technology. They are developing a technology center where they want to display, not only display, they want to deploy CSIR technologies for the people to utilize it. And Dr. Yogesh Suman is leading that particular initiative. A positive development to share with you that one technology from CSM-CRI Bhavnagar has been transferred. The equipment has gone to Assam, Guwahati, and they are having 2 more technology from CMAP, Lucknow. And once we will be having CSIR Technology Center there, where the technology will be demonstrated, and it will be in PPP model where anybody can come and get the benefit of the technology. So similar kind of experiments, we are trying to establish micro enterprises, skill development, more than 30 technology of IHBT. We are very closely working with the stakeholders and the CSIR labs. And labs are very happy that we are acting as a nodal agency to connect science and society. So that is another very important thing which we are doing. 2023 being the millet year, it's very important that the initiative which has been taken by Honorable Prime Minister and adopted by the whole world. So in this millet year, it's very important that CSIR should come up with the programs on millets. CFTRI Mysore, which is our food technology lab, that is taking the lead. And under the umbrella project, we are participating in that team. And Dr. Mohammed Rais and Suman Ray have already developed a policy document on millet. I think we will go a long way, particularly this year, working on millets, sustainable health. Similarly, hydrogen mission, it's again of very prime importance to the government of India. Here we have already started working with the hydrogen mission of CSIR, and we are bringing out weekly digest, and NCL Pune is the nodal agency, and director NCL Pune is extremely impressive with the kind of digest we are bringing out every week. Rather, they suggested Dr. Madhulika Bhati, who is taking the lead here, that we should put some price on the digest because it's so valuable that the industry will be highly benefited by that kind of hydrogen mission. So in nutshell, I would like to say that our mandate of science communication and policy research, because there were two labs, there is a good synergy. There are horizontal linkages between the science policy component and the science communication component. We are to a great extent achieving our targets, but on the foundation day, we also must, resolve something for the coming year. So I will not say much, but I think on your behalf, I am like committing myself that we must accelerate our activities so that our outcome, both tangible and intangible, should be visible, not to the CSIR only, but outside the CSIR ecosystem, whole science and technology ecosystem, but also to the society. So with these few words, once again, I would like to congratulate all of you for your, efforts which you have been doing, which are bringing fruits. And we are, establishing ourselves as a, new institution, but in a big manner. And I will again welcome Professor B.N. Jagtap and Professor B.B. Dhar for their kind presence. And we are looking forward for their inputs and guidance. Thank you so very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wishes. CSIR-NISCPR, in its continuous pursuit of disseminating knowledge, has been publishing books, journals, and bulletins. Today, on this auspicious day, we would like to release some of our recent publications, for which I request the dignitaries to do the honor. We start with the release of special issue of the Journal of Scientific and Industrial Research on Industry 4.0, a way forward for self-reliance and sustainability. Thank you. A very rigorous exercise was undertaken on the technology readiness level of CSIR technologies from TRL level 6 and above, and a bulletin on TRL assessment will be released now.
We wanted to include this in the
Thank you. Our next release is a book on the science and technology quiz celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Azadi Ka Amrit. Gore sir.
Ravilji, are you? Manish, how? So in our magazine science reporter, we have a quiz.
Okay.
Every issue. So Azadi Company thoughts of repeatedly science reporter has a quiz book as a
Thank you. Today's last release is a flip book on swastik, an initiative on scientifically validated societal traditional knowledge. Click.
Yes.
No, not this. Okay.
Thank you. A photography contest was organized on temple architecture under swastik, and I request Dr. Charulata to announce the winners.
Yes. So thank you, Sandhya. We had rolled out a photography competition in collaboration with MyGov. So the committee set yesterday and decided on 3 winners and then 2 consolation prizes also. So I'm announcing the winner's name and then a short video clip will be shown. So first prize goes to Anshuman Paul, whose winning entry is a part of Konark Temple, which is a 13th century old sun temple. And the second prize goes to Tarang Kumar Patolia, who sir, we could actually, since yesterday only the committee
Across the country.
Across the country, yeah.
Know from where they are.
We'll take the data from MyGov.
Platform because it's a more public engagement. We don't know.
We'll get the data from MyGov and send them. Yeah. So Tarang Kumar Patolia, whose winning entry is Sat Kaman, which is a prominent structure situated on the verge of a hill on the southern tip of Champaner. Which Sat Kaman means 7 arches. Third prize goes to GD Frederick Sindha Nai, whose winning entry is a photo of Airavateshwara temple located at Tanjavur district, Tamil Nadu, built by the Chola Emperor Rajaraja Cholan II in 12th century CE, and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The consolation prizes winners are Pratibha Seth, whose entry is a picture of Old Nalanda University, the world's first residential university and among the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world, located near Rajgir, now in Bihar. And the second consolation prize goes to Yogi Raj Brahmabhat, which is a picture, whose entry was Adalaj Stepwell, located in a small town of Adalaj in Ahmedabad. So it was built in 1498 AD in the memory of Rana Veer Singh of the Waghela dynasty by his wife Queen Ruda Devi. So I'd request Pamanand to play the clip of the winning entries.
Thank you, ma'am. May I now request Dr. Sujit Bhattacharya to introduce our chief guest, Professor B.N. Jagdap, who will be delivering Foundation Day lecture on From English Education Act 1835 to National Education Policy 2020.
Thank you. So it's a pleasant beauty for me to introduce Professor Jagtap. And as you know that, as Madam has already told us about within such a short time, we requested Professor Jagtap to give us a Foundation Day lecture. As you know, the Foundation Day lecture is a tradition of of very good institutes, and we are following that tradition. And this will be the second Foundation Day lecture of our institute. And we are so honored to have this from such an eminent person like Professor Jagtap. Professor Jagtap, as we all know, that the way he has been nurturing us through as chairman of the Research Council, the way he is accessible, and the way he has been looking into each of our OMP projects, the directions which come across from CSIR, the PAB meetings and all. And in a sense, the way we are shaping up the institute is being shaped up. And it was so nice when Professor Dhar was coming downstairs and he was feeling was saying that it was looking so bright. The whole institute is looking so bright, and visiting these different contents. So in a sense, what I would say is that our directors and then our chairman and the way the whole RC has been motivated also to interact with us. So we had a different experience under him, and the way he has been also taking forward with us this swastik, which we are so proud of. So it is a great honor really to have a chairman of such a stature, and he is so humble and always in fact, during that, his humbleness, you can see that he had sent 3 proposals for this, for the lecture, and he was already ready for preparing that lecture. And we all said that this is the lecture of such contemporary relevance of this NEP 2020. As you know that there are a critical introspection is required and understanding is required of this new education policy. And here through the Foundation Day lecture, I am sure not only who are there now, but we are also connecting to widely through the streaming and all. They would have the opportunity to listen to this lecture. And many of our young students who are there now and researchers who are there, and with an innovative idea, I would say whether we have this second layer of chairs, which the director told us. And so we are having the physical and this online presence today to illustrate the lecture. He has a very impressive and rich profile, and it will take a long time for me to really, so I have tried to condense it in a shorter format to the best possible. That, as you know, that he is one of the most respected senior faculty of the physics department. And earlier, he served as a distinguished scientist and director chemistry group at Bhabha Atomic Research Center. So you see that when we are talking of breaking the sieve, we are talking of interaction between the different disciplines, cross-disciplinary. And here is a person who has that from leading such an important group and then becoming there in this chairman. He is the governing body of S.N. Bose National Institute, various award, postdoctoral fellow, visiting scientist, University of Ontario, Canada, in India, abroad, the Center for Chemical Physics, Canada, Homi Bhabha Award for Science and Technology. So all these awards which one really aspires for, which looks forward, and then you will see that we have a person like him who is with us now, will be delivering this lecture with these type of. He was the president of Physical Science section at the 99th Indian Science Congress, president of the Indian Society for Atomic and Molecular Physics, Jagadguru Shankaracharya Award of National Eminence. And as I see that beyond these awards, the way he has connected the society and the socio-economic aspects which he talks about, which he puts into practice, and there where our institute mandate also so closely aligns together there. So we are so lucky and proud to welcome Professor Jagtap. Professor Jagtap, please, I request you to give your tell your address.
Ranjana Agarwal, Director NISPR, Dr. Bhattacharya, distinguished invitees, the NISPR family members, ladies and gentlemen. Well, at the outset, let me congratulate you on the second Foundation Day and wish you all the best for the activities you have taken up. It's indeed an honor for me to deliver the second Foundation Day address. And it's a rarest of the rare occasion that someone gives back-to-back Foundation Day addresses. Last time I spoke on India's traditional knowledge. And since policy is one of the verticals of this institution, I thought of connecting this talk with some policy-related subject. And there cannot be anything better than the National Education Policy 2020. The title is English Education Act 1835 to the National Education Policy 2020, covering about 185 years of history of education in this country. In this history, the first disruption in the Indian education system happened with the English Education Act of 1835. It destroyed the traditional education system of this country and paved the way of a colonial way of educating our younger generation. The influence of this has been there, and that is there even today. What National Education Policy 2020 attempts to do is to disrupt that system, which was flown from the English Education Act of 1835. So we are now facing a newer challenge in the educational institutions, the societies, and all that. How to break away from that colonial mindset of all these years and set up a new world for us in education. Now, interestingly, apart from disrupting the education system, these two events have got a lot of commonalities. And this is what I'm going to speak about. The colonial education system was criticized by many of our nationalist, social activists, intellectuals, and academicians. And in fact, the very basis of their criticism converges with the National Education Policy of 2020. It's not really surprising because the aspiration of this country, which was in that criticism, is now finds place in the NEP 2020. So if I say this, many of you will wonder what is there new in the National Education Policy 2020. What is new is all that criticism was done by the individuals in the pre-independence era. And after independence, all that history we forgot and continued with the British education system And now suddenly we realize that what our intellectuals said that time was the right thing for this country. And you'll find it is very interesting, and therefore I have brought to you exactly what they said. So let me begin this presentation, the education, how it started in the British Raj. And down there is a statement by Charles Grant. Incidentally, Charles Grant is the father of modern education in India because he promoted the Charter Act of 1813, which set aside 2 lakhs, a princely sum, for educating Indians. And see what he says. Once English knowledge was imparted to the Asiatics, their faculty of reasoning would be restored and they would rise to the scale of human beings. The British thought that the Indians were uncivilized. And only way they can be civilized is by providing the English education. And therefore, the objective of that education was moral and mental improvement of the natives, as we were called. So the English Education Act of 1835, followed by the Wood's Dispatch 1854, that paved the way for formation of universities in this country. And the objective was to produce the clerks and munsips in this country. If one has to describe what sort of education was this, there were no skill component in that education, and there was extraordinarily high emphasis on literature and humanities. Well, this is not to say that British did not start any technical education, but that technical education was with imperial interest. We take pride in saying that the Roorkee Engineering College was established in 1848, but it was primarily established to produce sub-assistant engineers and overseers who will be subordinate to the European engineers. The Grand Medical College started in 1845. Again, the purpose was to produce medical assistants to the European doctors. And it was said that the European doctors, when they come to India, they are on the higher side of the age and they need interpreters in the local languages. And that is what was the job of the medical assistant. And in all together, this education system produced an equation that education is equal to government job. So this was, in sum total, was the British education system. Incidentally, we have carried on this until yesterday. For example, the British thought that the Indians are uncivilized and therefore they should be made civilized by providing the English knowledge. Today, every one of us who is in the teaching community thinks that the student in front of me is uncivilized, and therefore I need to civilize him by giving him information and knowledge. And this we do also to the students of the 21st century who have better appreciation of technology than the teachers have. Now, this particular thing also runs in many of our practices. When I first time visited United States, I had a habit of folding my hands. Many of you also do that, folding my hands and sit in the meetings. And the next day, my professor asked me, "Why do you fold your hands when you are in the meeting?" I said, "This is what was taught to me." He said, until 50s, the students in the black schools were asked to do this because they were considered to be uncivilized. And if the hands of uncivilized students are free, then he might pinch someone else or throw a chalk on somebody else. To prevent that, they're asked to fold their hands. And then he said, your British masters, they taught you all this and made you subordinate to them. Even today in our schools, we have the same practice. We want our students to fold hands. So what we talk about is that spirit of that colonial education still continues. Second thing is today's education is a no-skill education, by and large. And this education system does a fantastic job of training students for more education. So objective of primary education is to prepare a student for secondary education. Objective of secondary education is to prepare a student for college education, and objective of college education to prepare a student for the university. At no time and no stage, we prepare our students to face the realities of our life. So what British did, we are still continuing. Third important thing is the technical education and the medical education. The British wanted to train Indians for supporting role in engineering and medicine. Today also we are doing the same thing. We are not training our students to do something creative, engineering and medical students. I'll just tell you one example. 5 years ago, there was a big talk in Maharashtra that refinery was to be built at Nanar. So I went around the country and asked the chemical engineers, can we design a refinery like Nanar? And the answer I got was no. So what we are going to do? What do we do? Oh, very small thing, some small adaptation here and there, but not the major thing. And that also comes from the British education, the spirit of the British education. Now the national education policy talks about the critical thinking, problem solving abilities to be imparted to the students. And finally, that equation, education is equal to government job, still survives today. So this has been the total outlay of the education system, starting with the British Education Act until today. Now, what was that education? And I thought that I'll bring it to you some commentaries on this. And this commentary is from Lord Curzon. He was a Viceroy of India. And in 1901, he wrote letters to all vice chancellors of the universities at that time. And see the language. And he writes, only small portion I have brought to you. It is no use to turn out respectable clerks, munsip, and wakils if this is done at the expense of intellect of people. A people cannot rise in the scale of intelligence by cultivation of memory alone. Memory is not mind, though it is a faculty of mind. The entire education in India was based on rote learning, the memory, and that is what is commenting. And yet we go on sharpening the memory of our students, encouraging them to the applications of purely mnemonic tests, stuffing their brains with the abracadabra of geometry, physics, and algebra and logic. Teachers get carried away by the same fundamental error as their pupils. And instead of thinking only of the mental and moral development of the students committed to their care, are absorbed with the percentages and passes and tabulated results. So in sum total, Lord Curzon describes Indian education system as a rote learning and tabulated results and passes and fails and nothing more than that. And that you can see that rote learning was and is the hallmark of Indian education. Now this policy 2020 wants to correct it. We'll see what are the ways that are proposed there. Now this purely rote learning based education and also the bookish education was criticized by the nationalists. And I bring it to you a small portion. This is Jyotiba Phule. He addressed the Hunter Commission 1882, and what he said: the course of instruction in primary school should consist of reading, writing, and accounts, and knowledge of general history, that's the bookish knowledge, and also an elementary knowledge of agriculture and few lessons on moral duties and sanitation. In connection with lessons in agriculture, a small model farm where practical instructions can be given would be a decided advantage. And if really effectively managed, would be productive of the greatest good to the country. The experiential learning that we are talking about, the practical demonstration, that is what arises in the Indian education in 1882. And then he says the textbook in required revision and recasting as much as they are not practical or progressive in their scope. Lessons or technical education and morality, sanitation and agriculture and some useful arts should be interspread along them in progressive series. So he's making a case not only for agriculture, but the technical arts, the technical education to be imparted in the schools. Unfortunately, this was not accepted. But there were two very important issues here. The education, one of the objective of education is to empower a student economically. And that can happen only if you provide these skill courses, provide them technical education or how to do agriculture. And second one is, which has been forgotten all these years, is that the skill education provides a level playing field. If bookish education, which is also based on the rote learning, is one dimension of education, the first generation learner is not going to adopt to that. But if you provide skill education as a second component to the education, then he can excel in skill education. And someone who is doing only rote learning may not do as good as these people in the skill education, provides a level playing field for all. And this is what in today's language we call as providing an equity in education, as we shall discuss. Now, in 1883, Acharya Praful Chandra Ray, the first modern chemist of India, he described the university education system of that time. And if I read it out to you, you will feel that it is the same thing that what we are experiencing today. It is enough to mention that the market value of an average graduate does not exceed rupees 25 per month. That 25 rupees per month today has become 10,000 rupees. But then he adds, barely 1% of them is successful in life in worldly sense, and while thousands rush to their doom thoughtlessly. So even today, the students who are getting a job happens to be barely 1%. The college-educated Bengali youth could reproduce from memory notable passages from Shakespeare and Milton and quote ad nauseam, Mill and Spencer, and all the same would helplessly fail in the struggle of life. It's the same thing what we are seeing today. And then he makes a very important comment. I do not hesitate to say that degree only serves as a cloak to hide degree holders' ignorance. He knows little and cares to know less than beyond the irreducible minimum required for passing the examination. Look at the language he uses. That's true even today. But in that time, these people had guts to tell the British government, it is necessary that the attention of the country should be clearly drawn to the colossal waste of energy and national intelligence in the past by our scheme of university education. After independence, none of us showed that courage to say that although we are continuing with the same education, this is involving colossal waste of energy and national intelligence. So you can see nothing has apparently changed for the last 150 years in education. While all this was happening, there are many other people who are entering into the field of education. And I particularly like this commentary of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar. And he's talking about the technical education. If the industry refuses to employ the trainees, it is obvious that nobody is going to bother about technical training. And the technical centers will have to be closed down. If therefore the training imparted under the technical training scheme is supplemented by further biased training, biased by the industry, the final product would be acceptable to the civil industry. I'm prepared to accept any reasonable changes that may be suggested to make our trainees possible to the industry. That is, as back as 1944, someone was talking about industry academia connect, not only in terms of internship, but the let's take industry on the board to prepare the syllabi. And today, national education policy talks about the same thing. You need to get industry involved in formulation of the syllabi, and also the UGC suggests that you should have professors of practice, not a person who is having a mere PhD, but somebody who is in the industry, who is in as a member of your faculty. But look, these issues were discussed much, much earlier, and we just closed our eyes. And now let me, this is something about all this discussion was whether our students are getting empowered or not through the education. Bal Gangadhar Tilak in 1896 raised one more issue. He wrote in his famous newspaper, Kesari. This was on 25th February 1896. And what comment he makes is, what is a true university? That's the title of his editorial. The Bombay University was established in 1857. However, for last 40 years, the university has not produced a single thought leader of international repute. Is it not a surprise? See, the university education should empower students to get jobs, develop skills. At the same time, the university also is supposed to develop these thought leaders of international repute. And Tilak is agitated that in 40 years, the Bombay University has not produced any such leader. Whereas now today, the Bombay University has 150-year-old. Nobody asked this question, why we have not produced a thought leader? And for that matter, not only the Bombay University, but any other university we talk about. So this is the commentary, what the intellectuals, social workers did before independence. And some of that criticism entered into the minds of the British. And you can see the education reforms, that is Indian Universities Act was 1857, by which 3 universities were formed, Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. And then I also refer to the Hunter Commission and Lord Curzon's statements. And then came several commission reports and policy documents. And if you peruse through this, you will find that what NAP 2020 is talking about is contained in this commission reports. Let me take just one example. The Sadler University Commission, established in 1917, gave its report in 1919. It suggested 3 things. The first one, that's the commission which introduced 10 plus 2 plus 3 system education in the country. The second one is Sadler Commission said that if you are to grow in education, every university, every college in the country should have a vibrant education department. It should work on the ways the Indians can be trained. What is the pedagogy which is suitable for the Indians? We did not do anything. National education policy again takes a note of it and says that you should have vibrant education departments in every college and every university. And Sadler Commission, the third most important one. By the time India had the affiliating kind of university system, that there is a university for the administration and the colleges affiliated to it. Sadler Commission said that if you want to grow higher education in this country, you should go for unitary kind of education system, no affiliation. We just forgot about that recommendation. Now, Education Policy 2020 puts that that we need to create now unitary systems out of these affiliating systems. I'll show you one example at a later stage. The same thing follows here. Hattot Commission, I'll refer to that in a different context. Zakir Hussain Committee report. This was again a report just before the independence. It is out of the Varda conclave. There was a question what sort of an education we shall have after independence. And Zakir Hussain, he chaired that committee. It's a very interesting report. I'll show you at a later stage. And finally, just before independence, we had the Sargent Plan of Education for India. This was for the first time Indian education was compared with the international education. And the commission report says India's education is 40 years behind that of Great Britain. That was in 1944. By the time we got independence and the Sargent Plan of Education was not implemented. And then post-independence, there are so many committee reports starting from Dr. Radhakrishnan Commission, University Commission, Mudaliar Committee report. What Mudaliar Committee did was 10 plus 2 plus 3 system, which was proposed in the Sadler Commission report, was converted to 11 plus 4. And then the Kothari Commission in 1964 brought it back to 10 plus 2 plus 3, which entered into the National Education Policy 1968. So we have been going back and forth. And finally, we have the National Education Policy 2020. Now, let me just give you some picture of what Zakir Hussain Committee report said. This was, I'm bringing to you the school education part, and the school education part of the National Education Policy 2020 exactly talks like this. The first one is the Indian opinion is practically unanimous in condemning the existing system of education in the country. It does not train individuals to become useful, productive members of society, able to pull their own weight and participate effectively in its work. And therefore, for school education, what this committee report proposes is a timetable. And you can see here, the school runs for 5 hours, 30 minutes per day, out of which 3 hours, 20 minutes are for the skill development. And they included whatever skills were available at that time: spinning, weaving, carpentry, agriculture, gardening, leather work, paper making, toy making. So all nationalists felt that the skill education is the most important part of education because that empowers a student economically. And there is another view to this. What does the skill education do? The skill education achieves another important issue. That is, it builds the coordination between brain, eye, and hands. When you want to do carpentry, when you want to do pottery, or even want to do simple charkha, your brain, eye, and hands have to coordinate. Now, this is a great training at that particular level because today we know if anyone needs to do great science, great engineering, he needs the mind, eyes, and hand coordination. This particular concept was picked up by the education systems abroad for this reason, that we should train our students in the eye, hand, and brain coordination. Unfortunately, we didn't do it, and it was then followed by the bookish education in the higher education, and we have ruined that national intelligence. What is the effect that has happened? We have just kept that criticism apart, continued with the same British policies of education, and you can see now the effect. I'll just bring it to you a few slides. The India is experiencing a learning deficit. There are inadequate development of specific academic language and cognitive skills in our school education. Just bring it to you the latest survey which happened 2 months ago in Maharashtra, where 5,308 students in the grade 3 were tested. And you know the disastrous result, 40% could not read 4-digit number. 40 to 50% students cannot subtract 3-digit numbers. 40% students do not understand calendar. They cannot read a date. 45% students cannot read time from a clock. And 51% students do not recognize shape of the objects.
For the age group of this.
This is third grade, grade 3. Okay, this is the great learning deficit that we have in this country. There are several other reports of this. If you go a little bit on the higher education side and start asking the questions, does the current education make our students employable? The same questions the nationalists in the pre-independence era were asking. Does it provide them the skills to enter the job market? Does it provide them 21st century skills? The answer is no. And every now and then in the newspapers, we read this, the challenge of employability, how to solve them. There is an acute shortage of skilled workforce in this country. Now, this is a report that may surprise many. Why do our students desire to go abroad for education? In today's world, education has become a commodity. If you provide a quality commodity, people will buy it, whatever price it is. And that is what they are doing. And you see how much money this poor country is sending abroad to train our younger generation. And this is a report that this is something like $75 to $85 billion annually. And $75 billion, if you just convert it, it turns out to be 6 lakh crores. That's the kind of money being taken out of this country. In my time, students used to go for postdoctoral work abroad. Then turned out to be that the standard of PhDs is bad. So people started going for PhDs. Then people started going for MS and you know this, that today the students are going after 12th standard. So this tells us to what extent the education has deteriorated. And I brought to you this figure of 6 lakh crores for an effect that if you take the central government's budget, the allocation for education is about 95,000 crores. So 6 times of that money we are sending abroad for educating our children. And this is another revelation that our educational institute should have. And this is what the Zakir Hussain committee was talking about. They were talking about contemporary skills. And then we should ask, what are the contemporary skills today? And this is a list of top career tracks of 2018. This is pre-pandemic. And you see which are the top career tracks: animation, VFX, fashion design, event management, interior decorator, IT cloud, filmmaking, beauty modeling, cosmetology, fitness, dietitian, and nutritionist. Ask the question, which of these professions are we preparing our students for? So when we talk about education, the whole thing is turning out to be just like performing a Satyanarayana ki puja. There is a Purohit, there is a Yajman, they spend a lot of money, invite a lot of people, they do a puja, and at the end of that thing, if you ask, what did you get out of it? They say, oh, some man ki shanti mil gayi. So same thing happens in our education system, degree mil gayi, and nothing more than that. The student is not empowered. And finally, Honorable Prime Minister keeps talking about that demographic dividend, and that is related to the working age population and the dependent population. We know that in India, the working age population has been growing, and therefore we expect that there should be a demographic dividend. And there is a curve here for China. The China's working age population was the highest in 2010, and that's the time they did a phenomenal economic progress. India's peak as regards to demographic dividend is going to happen around 2057, 2060. And we have a very short window. Now, I heard a Chinese saying that, cribbing, what he was saying that, well, these Americans and Europeans, they became rich when they were young. Their population was relatively young. We became rich when we were old. By 2057, Indians should not say this, that we became old but never became rich. And there is every reason for this, because you see the youth unemployment rates. In 2020, this was amounting to about 25%. So you can see there are young hands, but the young hands only can contribute to the economy provided they have a job. Those hands have a job. And who is going to provide those hands a job? Only the skills, and therefore it boils down to the education system. So this is the problem that we have. This is the problem of continuing that age-old British education system, which had no skills in it. It was only for training students to take up secondary jobs, assistance job, and that spirit we have continued today. And this is where we need to sum up. What is that education system which you are talking about, since the English Education Act of 1835? It still derives its objectives from the English Education Act of 1835. Our system has that conflict, empowerment versus elitism. I'll discuss this as a very important issue. Empowerment means we provide skills, provide knowledge to the student so that he becomes empowered in the society. Other one is an elitism. Elitism would mean, as I will define later, that the society is to be organized in the order of the degrees they possess. So a person who has past 12th standard is inferior to someone who has been graduate, and the graduate is inferior to the postgraduate, although none of them can use their knowledge to earn any money. So this is an hollow elitism that we follow, and much of it is derived from our past. What we believed was the work of the head is better than the work of the hand, and it is disconnected from the socio-economic realities. And that is where you start looking at the NEP in a different perspective. The first one is NEP 2020 recognizes the circular relationship between education and economic development. It is not written explicitly, but you can see the objective of this. The education feeds into economic development by creating skilled human capital. The education also brings up new knowledge, and that new knowledge creates new economic development opportunities. And in turn, the economic development feeds into the quality and quantity improvement. Now, this particular relationship needs to be understood very carefully. The modern education in the world started with the first industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution required skilled workers. The workers not only needed to have the skill, but they need to be obedient. They should take orders from supervisor. They should also have the social sense so that they do not fight with other fellow workers. And also they need to be punctual. They should come in the factory at a given time and leave at a given time. And another important thing was they should be able to do a routine job without getting bored. Same kind of a job you keep doing without getting bored. And that is how the school institutions were improvised. You have a school, have some skill development. The school has a teacher, so students obey the teacher. So in the same way, he will obey the supervisor in the factory. The school opens at a given time, closes at a given time, brings in punctuality. And along with the other fellow students, a particular member develops that social sense. So all that school system that we talk about is a product of the first industrial revolution. This was restricted to the school education, but by 1839, the German universities started research in their universities. What was that for? Well, the chemical industries were growing that required a newer knowledge. So create that knowledge in the laboratories. And you know that by 1840, 1850, the Germans were very powerful in the chemical industry. So the education also should produce new knowledge, which will create new opportunities. This is that relationship. And second important thing is this is a departure, I would say. Education has stakeholders. There are supply side stakeholders and there are demand side stakeholders. Who are the supply side stakeholders? Well, the universities, colleges, teachers, non-teaching staff, these are supply side, they supply education. What is the demand side? Demand side is student, their parents, society, all sectors of economy. They require certain quality of students. All earlier policies were supply side policies. They were worrying only about the supply side stakeholders. This policy says this is a demand side policy. You provide that education, what is demanded by the demand side stakeholders, what students want, what economy wants, what industry wants, what other sectors of economy want, what agriculture wants. Provide that education. You cannot decide what education should be given. So that's a major departure. Let me also tell you something. In the first point, the investment by the economic development goes in the improvement of quality and quantity. I was just trying to understand the QS world ranking of the universities and what is plotted here. You take every country and see what is the maximum QS ranking the university has, and also note down what is the GDP per capita for that country. You can collect a lot of data and then plot maximum QS ranking versus GDP per capita. You get a beautiful curve. And what it tells you is that if your country has higher GDP per capita, then your universities will be getting better ranks in the world ranking. And typically, you can see to get a country into top 100, the threshold GDP per capita happens to be $10,000 per annum. India's per capita GDP is about $2,500. And that fits into that rank of 200. So if you need to go for, see, there is no point in being passionate that we'll work hard and do that and we are great, intelligent people and all that. Look, it's the economics that tells you that if you want to get the rank in the first 100, your GDP should be approximately $8,000 to $10,000 per capita. And if you want to get in the first 10, then you can see that it should be above $40,000 per capita. Now, many of my friends ask me this question that, well, we also had great universities, the Nalanda and Takshashila. Yes, and existence of those universities also proves this point. Until 17th century, India was contributing 1/3 to the world GDP. You know what 1/3 of GDP means? 30 to 35% of world's GDP was produced by India. Today, China produces 15%, and we know the thing. And these universities were formed, Nalanda, Takshashila, and great names we take, were in that era, where the India was the richest country in the world. And when our GDP fell after the British ascent in India, our universities also went down. Now, therefore, you come back to the NEP, and what is it, this 450-page volume that you have in front of you? If I have to sum up in just one statement, it would mean this. Apart from developing good human beings capable of rational thought and action, important thing is multidisciplinary education with emphasis on vocationalization, skill development, 21st century skills, and provision for flexibility and Indian values. And all our nationalists, they were talking about that vocationalization, skill development, producing this. We didn't just worry about that advice. And now, suddenly, when the policy comes through, we have started thinking, how are we going to implement this? For that, the educationists and the education and the institute must go back to the history of education of this country, look at what was advocated by our nationalists, our educationists of those days, and this too you can practice, as we shall see later. Now, there is some discussion in the country on the equity and empowerment. Now, let me address this issue. Equity is providing an element of justice and fairness. So there are cartoonists that there are students who have got the punished, unequal heights. So you provide stands so that all of them can see that match going on there. That's equity. What is empowerment? Empowerment is to enable students realize their social goals, and social goals are plenty. Up to security, economic empowerment is the most important, but also other issues which are listed there. So education should empower students. And then there exists something called the academic elitism, where the social standing is decided by the number of years that you have for education. Now, equity and empowerment are meaningful only if education has some objective to serve. So if there is no objective, then an able-bodied person, he also is not going to get a job, and disabled person is also not going to get a job, howsoever equity you provide. And in the absence of tangible objective of education, the academic elitism will come in. And this is what has happened in our education system. I'll give you a simple example. The objective of doing research is for the social benefit. But suppose if my or citation, while both these scientists, their work is not useful to the society. That's the example that elitism enters into the system when research, education do not have any tangible objective. And this is where NEP 2020 defines that objective for education. Also look at this cartoon. I mean, I've brought it in very purposefully. Assessing students based on bookish knowledge only would mean this, that there is a master there who is asking all these animals, stating that, look, for a fair choice, the only test is climb that tree. And there the fish is also expected to climb that tree, elephant is also expected to climb. This is that education system that we practice. Whereas if you add skill education, it will provide an additional dimension. And that is why I'm again and again harping, and which is again and again said in the national education policy for the skill development. And this cartoon is based on Albert Einstein's famous statement, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it would live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And you can ask this question, how many students we have made them believe that they are stupid by this way of education? And therefore, the NEP stresses on recognizing and nurturing unique capabilities of each student. At least on paper, it looks very, very promising. How do we practice is a different issue. And as I said, that the skill education would provide an additional dimension and an internal equity for the students. Now, just let me articulate something in a different way. This policy, if it has to be implemented, it has to be taken to the teachers, schools, and colleges and all that. And those efforts have to be done, the policy advocacy. Now, this has not been done, and therefore I'll connect with some problems. This policy advocates structural reforms and academic reforms together. The structural reform is to create enabling structure of school and higher education so that the students can realize their full potential. And academic reforms, you have the skills, employability, entrepreneurship, and society connect through effective academic programs. How it is now, what I'm bringing it to you, this should go to the schools. Now I'm talking about the school education. If you take a child, then it undergoes this cognitive development in 4 different stages. 0 to 2 years is the sensomotor stage. 2 to 7 years is the pre-operational stage. Then 8 to 11 years is concrete operational stage. And 12 and up is a formal operational stage. And there are peculiarities of each of these stage. For example, in sensomotor stage, all things are learned through experience, trial and error. In pre-operational stage, development of language, memory, imagination, the symbolic thoughts. In the concrete operational stage, logical, mathematical manipulation of symbols. And in the formal operation stage, the child can appreciate the abstract concepts. In the concrete operational stage, the child knows only the inductive logic. The deductive logic comes in the formal operation. But one needs to understand this. What this policy does is just superimposes those stages, cognitive stages, on the school stages. So your pre-operational stage becomes the foundational stage, then concrete operational stage becomes preparatory stage, middle stage is this formal operational stage is divided into 2, middle stage and secondary stage. Now, why this is important is that if I'm to teach a 3-year-old child or a 7-year-old child, I need to worry about the cognitive development. The teacher should know. Now, suddenly for a 3-year, second grade student, you start talking about Chandrayaan or Mars mission, it's going to be disastrous because the child is not in that developmental stage to appreciate it. It's going to create confusion. So what is to be taught at what stage becomes important. Now, therefore, instead of this 10+2 system, this policy introduced this 5+3+3+4 system. But whatever I talk to you about the logic of this should reach the schools. This should reach the teachers. Then only they can adopt the pedagogy for that particular cognitive stage. It does not happen. This policy also puts a lot of stress on the early childhood care and education. And I just brought to you this figure. This is called the Heckman curve, which shows that if you invest in the early childhood care, the economic returns on that investment are going to be the highest. And that is what this policy also does. As regards higher education, now I'm closing it. This policy says that let's end the fragmentation of higher education system. What is that fragmentation? Now, this needs to be made very clear. There is a first level fragmentation in India that higher education is dispensed through state universities, which are affiliating, and there are central universities, private universities, central institutes. These are the unitary systems. This is the first fragmentation. The second fragmentation is that, let's just take an example. I have a college in which I'm teaching a student botany. Now, obviously, that student can take up an applied course like in some part of agriculture or floriculture or something like that. But that botany student cannot do it because floriculture, horticulture are taught in the agricultural universities, the fragmentation. And therefore, that botany student is left with just the classification of plants, only the bookish knowledge. My student, let's say engineering student, wants to learn about the patent laws. The patent laws are taught in the agricultural universities. He has no access. This is the fragmentation. Now, what the policy says, now you see, there's an interesting thing, is that this affiliating system should dismantle those systems. And from that system, you create unitary systems which are multidisciplinary. And whatever unitary systems you have, they become multidisciplinary. So this is just a pictorial representation. This is a typical picture of a university, where there is a university at the center and the colleges all around. The policy suggests that this is not a good structure. Instead of that, you group these colleges in a manner that each group represents a multidisciplinary education institute and it's unitary. So, for example, in any of these groups, one college could be Art, Science, Commerce College, one could be Architectural College, one could be Engineering College, one Nursing College, one Law College, one B.Ed College. Now they should come together and form a university. And that university can provide multidisciplinary education. So that's the idea that you have. Now, this particular thing is appears to be new concept. But then I was going through the history of education, and I hit on something which was discussed in 1926. And our education is not aware of it. And see, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was asked how to improve University of Bombay. And in that context, he gave some suggestions. And look, this is very interesting commentary. What he says is, we have in the city of Bombay the following colleges providing training in economics for BA course in the Bombay University. One, Elphinstone College, second, Wilson College, third is St. Xavier's College, and fourth is Sydenham College. There are two men teaching economics at Elphinstone, two at Wilson, and two at St. Xavier's, and some 6 at Sydenham. So together in these 4 colleges, you have 12 men who are teaching economics. And then he says, I know of no university in the world which has in the economics department 12 professors. See how the affiliating system is so inefficient. He is talking about it. Now, then he says, if however obvious that if these colleges could be induced to pool their teaching and library resources, is thinking of clustering. It would not only produce a strong specialized professorate, but it will also produce a professorate to deal with both undergraduate and postgraduate work, and thus obviate the waste of university resources. To bring this about, one has only to arrange these 12 men to combine together to distribute among themselves the work of carrying out the economics curriculum of the university and agree to lecture to all students taking the course irrespective of the college in which they are enrolled. This same plan could be easily adapted in organizing for other funds. The only difficulty probably is this plan is students having to run from the college to attend these lectures. Now, this problem has also come in the notice of UGC, and therefore UGC says that if you want to form a cluster, the colleges should be in the vicinity. But then Ambedkar says, well, this you can also handle this. I would say that all the lectures of political science shall be delivered at Sydenham College. All the lectures on philosophy and psychology shall be delivered at the Wilson College. All the lectures of literature and languages to be done at Elphinstone College. Reorganize. Let the teachers move about and not the students. This idea was also discussed in the Bombay Legislative Council on the University Reforms Committee and also University Act. We have forgotten about all these developments, and we are trying to rediscover the wheel. And finally, I should also bring to your notice that this policy brings in multiple exit and multiple entry. Now, this has been criticized in some academic quarters, that in the first year, the student will exit with some skill course with the undergraduate certificate. After second year, exits with the undergraduate diploma. Then he can continue with his bachelor's degree or bachelor's degree with honors. Exiting students at an early stage was talked about in Hartog Commission report in 1929. And that report clearly says the universities are overcrowded with men who are not profiting either intellectually or materially by their university education. And then he talks about the cost of the education. Each student in a university or a college costs in many countries far more than the fees, sometimes 5 or 6 times as much. And this money in India comes from the endowments, but largely from the public purse. If those students who now go to a university or a college without being really fitted for higher work were diverted to large numbers at an early stage to careers better suited to their capabilities, money would be set free for more profitable use, educational use. So all this thinking existed, and I'll just skip this part and then come to the one which is going to be an important one. How do you stop rote learning? And that can be done only through the effective use of the assessment practices. And I will not go into the details, but one issue that has to be done is change the perspective of the assessment, adopt to the modern thinking of assessment. And I'll skip this. The policy also says that we'll have the 20,000 crore funds for research, and they will be used for addressing key societal challenges, sustainable development, so on and so forth. And I find this is particularly useful because if you just look at the India's rank in the publication, our rank is third. But if you look at other social indices, our ranks are pretty low. The reason is that research, what happens in your laboratory, does not get filtered, percolated to the social realities. And finally, this is my last slide. Internationally, people have been talking about that if there is a policy, if the education reforms, how do you implement the education reforms? A beautiful article by Sergey Anmi. What he does is he identifies 4 forces. One is the bureaucratic change force, that the government brings the policy and there is a government machinery which is trying to implement it. There is a market-driven change force, what market requires. With the most important one are leadership change force, the college management, university management, school managements, and the teaching community, the teachers. They are supposed to be implemented. Now, if you really want to see a policy being implemented, then all these 4 forces will have to work synergistically. If they do not, then probably we'll get into a different kind of a mess. And what is the need for that? I mean, I have been traveling all over the country, talking to teachers and the college managements on the implementation of national education policy. What I see is that the management and the teacher, their mindset is that of the British education system. The same thing, they have to come out of it. They will still keep talking about, no, we implement this, what will happen to our workload, what is going to happen to this. You know, these are the questions that come forward. They have not understood the spirit of the national education policy. Second one, which has not happened, is these are the students for which we are bringing this education reform. But we never had a dialogue with those students. We are not sensitized them that, look, this is the policy. This is what it is going to do for you. And if the students are convinced, they are in turn going to pressurize the colleges, universities, and the teachers and demand these reforms. We have not done that. And these 2 things are extremely important. And finally, there are guidelines how to implement it. The guidelines are not important. The spirit is important. And that is what the education policies, education institutes should do. And there is not much time, but therefore I brought to you here the famous statement of Napoleon Hill, an American author. Don't wait. The time to start will never be just right. Start with what tools you have and better tools will be found as you go along. Don't wait that you will get all the tools. That will never happen. With this, I close this presentation. Thank you very much. Oh. Oh.
Thank you very much, sir, for your excellent lecture. May I now request Dr. Sujit Bhattacharya to introduce Professor B.B. Dhar.
We are lucky to have thought leaders among us, as you see that, and they are integral part of our NISPR. So here I am proud to introduce Professor B.V. Dhar, who is also who is sharing our very important knowledge resource platform, knowledge awareness mapping platform. And it is a planning and monitoring committee, the crucial part of it, which he is chairing. And as you see that when you again see his profile, and I will brief to the extent possible, but he transcends himself from his professorship in IIT BHU in mining and metallurgy, from there to our own CSIR-NISCPR. Earlier it was called Central Institute of Mining, Dhanbad. And then from there to mining and fuel research, now we call it. And the way he has integrated this knowledge with his own deeper understanding of his foray into as an education, looking across the different education ecosystem. And therein you can see that he has been founding director of the UGC's Academic Staff College at BHU, member of the first Academic Council, member of the Research Council, and this host of other ways in which he has interacted in one sense to give a different fillip to the mining and metallurgy in one sense, strengthening this ecosystem. On the other hand, across the system where he is recognized as one of the foremost educationists in the country. So with this, I would say that, as you say, see that with so many awards, so many ways he has really influenced this whole research, technology, and the education ecosystem. We are really proud to have Professor B.V. Dhar to give his presidential remarks. Sir, please.
सॉरी, मैंने कहा कि थोड़ा हिंदी में मतलब मजा आता है उसमें, मेरी आदत हो गई है कुछ ना मिल। एंड अगर आप अपनी लैंग्वेज में स्टार्ट करते हैं यू कैन एंड बेटर। बात नहीं, बैठ के मैंने बोलने की आदत नहीं है, आदत नहीं है, इसलिए शायद कभी नहीं थी। तो अब फिजिकली आई माइट बिकम अनफिट वन डे दैट आई हैव टू, ऐसे अवॉइड ही करता हूँ मैं। ऐसे जब सबको देखने में जरा संतोष होता है, अदरवाइज आप इसी लेवल पे बैठे किसी एक आध का। फिर आप इमरान साहब को देख रहा हूँ मैं आज, आई एम सो प्राउड टू सी हिम टुडे। एंड इनफैक्ट फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई वुड से हमारे चीफ गेस्ट साहब जब आएंगे तो उनकी तारीफ उनके सामने करेंगे। मगर अभी तो मैं इतना कह सकता हूं कि आप लोग बड़े फॉर्चुनेट हैं कि आप CSIR में हैं। गवर्नमेंट जॉब अगर हो तो CSIR जैसा हो। नो, इट्स नॉट फ्रॉम lighter point of view. Because government job में जी मेरी लड़की है वो भी गवर्नमेंट पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग में है एंड शी इज GM, शी इज हेड HR. मगर शाम को 8, 9, 9:30 अगर आ गई पहले तो हम कहा आज क्या बात है जल्दी आ गई. तो बट दैट इज डिफरेंट. CSR में प्रोफेसर साहब, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई वुड लाइक टू कॉम्प्लीमेंट यू एंड बीइंग इन, आई थिंक ऐसा तो नहीं आज एकेडमिक डोज आज ज्यादा हो रहा है आप लोगों को. एक प्रोफेसर बोले दूसरे प्रोफेसर बोले वहाँ प्रोफेसर बहुत बैठी है तो उसको हम लोग डाइल्यूट करेंगे थोड़ा सा. आई डोंट सी मच टाइम इन दैट. But what I must say that I have heard several lectures and given also, but today's lecture, मेरी गर्दन टेढ़ी हो गई because it was so meticulous. And I will quietly steal from you that presentation if it is possible. But I tell you, were you ever a member of a UGC committee? See, now had he been, his mind would have changed. And he gave whatever he gave today is something mind-boggling. कि हमारे in 1835, what was the fact? 1835 and today is that सबकी एज बीच में आ गई इसके और काम उतना भी दिले भर का नहीं हो रहा. अब खैर with this new education policy, I read it. I had to speak somewhere, so I took a copy of that, read a few things. But then we know we just counted. But the way he analyzed that we are so rich that things have been pointed out since then. But implementation part, even today, I don't know how far it will go. But I think, जैसे कहते हैं ना आजकल का स्लोगन है मोदी है सब मुमकिन है. He has started taking interest in this. Lately, he spoke and he had a meeting also of vice chancellors in BHU, and he was talking of something else, but education policy was. So I think let us hope that, sir, your dream will come true, and we will see that we can be of any use. We'll. Professor Deep Saab, Professor Ranjana Madam, a dynamic director I have come across in CSIR in recent years. हम लोग टाइम में भी डायनेमिक थे मगर in recent years, and on the top of that, the dynamic director general CSIR. I wish he had been here, but he is another lady. आजकल our this announcer was also lady, and there are so many ladies. They do deliver. बहुत लोग शक करते हैं ये डिलीवर करेंगे कि नहीं. आपका यहाँ लैब का हुलिया ही बदल गया. आई पार्डन माय लैंग्वेज. जब मैं आया अंदर आज मैं खुद भट्टाचार्य जी ने पॉइंट आउट किया, इट वाज अ फैक्ट बिकॉज़ आई हैव कम हियर अर्लियर several times, and I have come earlier in the older 2 labs only in one capacity when I had to interview either lab or this. शायद रईस अहमद का टाइम भी किया होगा. तो ये साइंटिस्टों का that was the only exposure I used to have in these labs. Maybe nearer the church further भरूंगा. हम दिल्ली में हैं, ये भी दिल्ली में है, मगर अब ये दोनों मर्ज जो हो गया. ये निस्पर अभी तक मैं ठीक से लिख नहीं पाता हूँ. याद तो करें हर वक्त कार्ड अपना देखना ये निस्पर है क्या है, इसमें स्पेलिंग क्या है, बट एक्सलेंट शॉर्ट फॉर्म और बड़ा अच्छा है. पॉलिसी रिसर्च आप नहीं करेंगे, सब एकेडमिक पीपल कैन ओनली टीच, बट इम्प्लीमेंटेशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड इफ यू पीपल टेक इंटरेस्ट, हालांकि हायर एजुकेशन आपका सब्जेक्ट नहीं है, मगर रिसर्च इज ए कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री. देखिए हायर एजुकेशन वाले रिसर्च कर सकते हैं और कोई नहीं कर सकता है, बिकॉज दे हैव एटलीस्ट सम बैकग्राउंड. तो वी हैव दैट काइंड ऑफ फीलिंग. आज उन्होंने चीफ गेस्ट साहब ने बहुत सी चीजें कही, एंड वन थिंग आई लाइक एलिटिज्म इन एजुकेशन. ये एलिटिज्म हर जगह होता है. और साइंटिफिक टेम्पर में मैं फर्स्ट टाइम आई हर्ड द वर्ड साइंटिफिक टेम्पर was Professor Rastogi, Vice Chancellor BHU. He is a chemist. He is no more now. A very eminent chemist. And he once called a small group. उनका बड़ा शौक होता था elite group बनाने के. तो एक बार उन्हें अपने लॉज में ही एक कमेटी रूम था, जो उसमें ज्यादा से ज्यादा 10-15 लोग ही आ सकते थे। तो उन्होंने हम लोगों को बुलाया, हम भी थे। तो उन्होंने ये बताया पहली बार, ये साइंटिफिक टेम्पर क्या होता है। हमने उनसे कहा, मैं कहा ये टेम्पर टेम्पर क्या होता है, मतलब व्हाई इज द क्वेश्चन ऑफ टेम्पर। एंड आई थिंक द वे ही एक्सप्लेन्ड इट, आई रियलाइज्ड दैट ये तो कोई ऐसी चीज है दैट वी मस्ट ऑल अंडरस्टैंड एंड लर्न। साइंटिफिक टेम्पर के साथ मेरे ख्याल में साइंटिस्ट को सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी है। अनलेस यू रियली फॉलो इट अप, व्हाट विल यू प्रैक्टिस। हमारे पास ये आजकल थोड़ी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी इसकी है, मेन तो आप ही लोगों की है, ये जो कैंप है। लेट मी बी ऑनेस्ट, सब डेफिनेशन ऑफ यूनेस्को of teacher is teaching is learning. And every day I pick up something. Every day. चाहे छोटा काम हो बड़ा काम हो. And I start. In camp, I attended a few, what do we call them, seminars? Yeah. And I attended 3 of them. We have students who are intellectuals. 3 examples I'll give you. One 16-year-old student designing a satellite ready to be launched next year with the help of the government and US. ये एक example दे रहा हूँ. Second, astrophysicist, a girl, I think from Odisha. She said she has invented a meteoroid, one of those stars which keep on colliding. And somebody out of the audience asked another intelligent question. He said, what laboratory and telescope you used? He said, no, I didn't use any. It was all software, which approved. Through that, I could find that. Then another question came to her. What is the size of that? He said, very good question. I wish I could answer you. I have informed the NASA. And NASA have replied that it will take them 6 years to measure what size it is. ये एक 16 साल की लड़की ने समझा. And there were a few words. So that is the system. So our knowledge platform, madam, I think is in some way is helping, maybe not to the entire satisfaction, but we have a good team from say your laboratory and a good company working hard to produce it. As far as you are concerned, I have been a part of CSIR. I'm still a part of the CSIR. I'm still on some RC labs. RC is the showcase of an institution. And every meeting we attend as members is something new. Something new put before. अब आज इतनी चीजें इन्होंने कि ये किया है और ये आपने जो रिलीज किया, this is nothing but. And thanks to you being a chairman, RC, that's why all these things came up. And your work, somebody has to highlight it. Somebody has to publicize it. Oh, मैंने वो देखा science reporter. Oh, I used to earlier get a compliment, but suddenly that stopped. But anyway, it doesn't matter because I'm not directly with CSR. But I was with the DG's office. I saw that last issue there. मैं उसको देखने लगा तो उसने क्या नाम उसका वो सेक्रेटरी जिसे सर आपको इसको ले गया आपको. मैंने कहा हाँ बहुत दिनों के बाद एक अच्छा सा मैगजीन देखा. कंट्रीब्यूटर्स वर वेरी वाचिंग दिस फॉर्मर डायरेक्टर जनरल से CSR हाँ कुछ था वो. आई पिक्ड अप दैट एंड दैट इज द स्टैंडर्ड. आपके 15 जर्नल जितने हैं, ये इतना एक इंस्टीट्यूशन कंट्रीब्यूटिंग 15 जर्नल इज नॉट ए जोक मैडम. आई थिंक the standard of institution is not known by what they work from day to day, what publications go, what media go, what a third person. और आपका ये तो है कम है. मुझे कुछ कहना नहीं है. आई थिंक प्रेसिडिंग में क्या होता है, आप लोग काफी थक गए होंगे. बट योर लेक्चर वाज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग एंड आपका वो कंपोडियम जो था ना वो एक इतना सा बना हुआ है. मैंने पहली बार देखा CSR में एक जगह सारी लैब्स को आप देख सकते हैं किसने क्या किया. वो मैंने अभी अपने ड्राइंग रूम में टेबल पर रखा हुआ है. Because you know, many people say CSR क्या करता है वो करता है. वो तो one of the, I will not name, one of the former prime ministers also said ऐसा। फिर वो गए उनके गांव में ही उन्होंने काम करना शुरू कर दिया, तब तक शायद वो रिटायर हो गए, कुछ हुआ। तो ये दैट इज ए वेरी कंसोलिडेटेड सेट ऑफ द रिसर्च दैट आवर लैब डू। अगर 38 labs है ना अब, I think 38 labs है, 38 labs are doing enough research. And I would close with the remark that I am privileged to be here. And when I got a phone call the other day, नरेश जी ने फोन किया था, तो फिर मैंने वो प्रोग्राम भी देखा, मैं कहा अच्छा है कि प्रोग्राम बहुत लंबा नहीं है. It was a short. No, it was really, no, it was a very brisk program because starting at 4 and 3 or finishing by 4:40 or something like that, it was very well done. I must thank Ranjana Madam and all of you for inviting me to be here, and I hope we'll continue to support each other. और your support, Madam, camp के लिए बहुत जरूरी है. And unless you people support open heartedly, camp आगे बढ़ नहीं सकता है. और camp बढ़ाने के लिए, after attending those seminars, I find that it has some impact and it has audience. It has audience. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your motivating remarks. As we have come towards the end of today's program, I request Dr. Yogesh Suman, Senior Principal Scientist, CSIR-NISCPR, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, one and all, and respected Director Madam Professor Ranjana Agrawal ji, Professor B.N. Jagtap ji, Professor P.V. Dhar ji, and it gives me indeed an immense pleasure to propose this vote of thanks on behalf of the team which has worked tirelessly for the successful completion of this Foundation Day lecture. And it is indeed a great matter of honor for us, and we would like to express our sincere thanks to our Director Madam Professor Ranjana Agrawal ji for support and guidance. And Madam, your support and guidance has always provided us as the much needed confidence and encouragement in all our endeavors. We'd like to express our heartfelt thanks and appreciation to Professor B.N. Jagtap ji for his valuable guidance. Sir, we have been benefited a lot by your experience in all our projects and research activities. And today's lecture, as सबने देखा, वो एक आई ओपनर था, एक यात्रा थी कि जो हमने इतिहास से वर्तमान तक की, और ऐसा लग रहा था जैसे कि हम नई एजुकेशन पॉलिसी से ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं. बिल्कुल सर, आपके लिए ये एक आई ओपनर था. आई मस्ट से दैट कि ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ ऑल द मेंबर्स आई मस्ट से कि वो काफी आई ओपनर था हमारे लिए. एंड कमिंग टू द कोर कमिटी एंड सब कमिटी मेंबर्स, सोशल मीडिया, प्रिंटिंग, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, परचेज section, student interaction committee, poster organizing committee, refreshment, IT division, program coordination committee. We are all thankful to you for your valuable contribution in successful organization of this second Foundation Day. And we are also thankful to our administration, finance and purchase, especially COA, R.K. Roshan ji, Ajay Kumar ji, our Koha, Ravi ji, our SPO, for their support and successfully completing the modalities. Beyond modalities के तो काम हो ही नहीं सकते, और ये support बहुत important है. Being in a government organization, you have to follow the procedures and compliance, all those things. And we also thank the team behind catering, especially Dr. Naresh. खाने पीने का इंतजाम हम शुरू से ही कंसर्न थे कि भी खाने पीने का इंतजाम अच्छा होना चाहिए, और वो काफी अच्छा भी था, और everybody is appreciating that. Yeah, transport arrangement and विवेकानंद सेक्शन में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर टीम ने जो काम किया, हॉर्टिकल्चर सेक्शन स्पेशली, दे डिजर्व स्पेशल क्रेडिट फॉर दैट की जो सजावट वगैरह हमने देखी यहाँ पर. और उसके बाद हमारे ACSR के स्टूडेंट जिन्होंने बहुत एंथुसियास्टिकली हमारे पोस्टर कंपटीशन में पार्टिसिपेट किया और एक जीवंत प्रदान की हमारे इस कार्यक्रम को. विपिन, हाउ मेनी? एंड लास्ट बट नॉट लीस्ट हमारा प्रोजेक्ट स्टाफ, हमारा आउटसोर्स स्टाफ, हम इनका भी तहे दिल से शुक्रगुजार करते हैं कि इन्होंने हमारे प्रोग्राम को सक्सेसफुल बनाने में अपना योगदान दिया. And thank you one and all. Thank you very much and thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request all to kindly stand up for national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you. We will now proceed towards the central lawn for sapling plantation, which will be followed by poster presentation by our research scholars. Thereafter, I also request all to join us for high tea near the nursery lawn. Thank you.